Welcome to the Geospatial Frontier Virtual Technology Fair, hosted and created by Project Geospatial and partnered with the American Geographical Society. We're about to have an amazing discussion with the Emerging Space Panel, moderated by Mr. Scot Currie, who is the Senior Executive at the National Geospatial-Intelligence Agency. His current role at NGA is the Deputy Director of Source Operations, where he performs day-to-day tasking operations of the United States government's geospatial satellite constellations and the integration of new geospatial data sources in support of DoD and Intelligence Community missions. Now I'm going to pass the baton to Scot as he takes off with the introductions and discussion with our panelists.
Hey, thanks a lot, Adam. Appreciate it. And thanks so much for setting this up in what I think is going to be a very interesting panel based on the numbers of the variety of companies that we have here to discuss their business operations today. I want to say, first off, that thanks for the intro. I've been interested in new space, as we call it now, for many, many years. I've been working with some foreign partners on their plans for that. And I think the new space mission, by new space, I mean smaller satellites, et cetera, bringing data down to the ground and exploiting it in an automated way so that people aren't focused on extracting all the value manually, right? I think we all agree that those days are long gone. And the challenge is to move us forward to where it's kind of running autonomously and the data is extracted out of a multitude of these pixel streams or services and brought to bear directly where the customer needs it. So that's our focus at NGA. I know that's the focus that the Army, the Navy, and those that I spend a lot of time with in my day-to-day experiences at work. And so I think these companies that are represented today are all on the path to providing some value and to push us forward into providing those kind of services on behalf of the government and indeed the private sector. So the purpose of the panel today is to kind of give each one of these 5 companies and their leaders and speakers today the opportunity to kind of provide exposure to what are the emerging space-based technologies and ground-based technologies that are going to make best use of these data sources, and what are they doing to enter the industry? We want to understand how they are unique or different from some of the established companies that are out there today. In other words, what might separate them from their competitors? What kind of partnership arrangements are they making? Are they trying to do it all themselves? Or have they found partners with other corporations or other entities that are filling some of the gaps where they agree, I can't do everything, right? And then understand what new problems are being faced as these technologies bring more and more capacity, more variety of data types and sources into the marketplace, and then bringing that into the government and the private sector's enterprise so they can make best use of those. I can tell you that, as we talk to our customers, we all agree that the amount of data that's out there already is far too much for us to manually kind of extract value from. We've got to figure out a way to become more automated, to have confidence in the algorithms and other things that are extracting the value out of there so we can depend on those and don't have to look at every piece of information ourselves to validate it. That's a cultural transformation that we have to overcome in the government. And I think it's probably similar in the private sector. We're going to talk to a couple of radar constellation providers today and collectors. I'll be very interested to see, because I don't believe there's a large number of private sector radar experts on exploiting that kind of imagery. So I'm interested to hear how they're going to do that and use those systems to provide services to the customer base that they can then consume. So the process that we're going to follow today is I'm going to give each one of the 5 companies about no more than 5 minutes to kind of give an overview of, number one, who they are, what their company does. As I mentioned, focus on the purposes that I described before, what makes them unique, what's their vision, where are they in their business plan for today, and what is their plan for the future. So I want to give them a chance to do that. There are questions coming in via chat that Adam is monitoring and sending to me. I have a few questions already as a result of reviewing their videos and their websites already as well. So that's how you, as the viewing audience, can participate by sending questions into Adam, and he will do his best to collapse those into slices that I can consume and then ask back to each of the companies. So with that, I want to turn it over to our first speaker, and that would be, I believe, Andy Bowyer from Kleos Space, an RF signal collector that's been in business for quite a while now. I know I've met with him on at least one occasion. I'm going to turn it over to Andy, and you will be our first victim. So please proceed. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Scott. And thanks, Adam, for organizing the event. Really proud to be part of it. So Kleos Space is as indicated by the cunning name with the space in the title, it's a space-powered RF geolocation data as a service company. What that means is that we're flying small satellites in formations of 4. So those satellites are actually quite close together. It's a sort of unique part of it. Satellites themselves aren't phenomenally complex. They are essentially flying antennas. They've got some capabilities with regard to propulsion, etc., to keep them in the formations with relations to themselves. But we try to keep the space part relatively straightforward. Each of those satellites is collecting radio transmissions from the ground. What they then do is they then transmit those what they've collected back to the ground to us, where we provide or perform a whole load of signal processing algorithms. We run the data through our signal processing system, and we then work out where the location of the transmitters are using some physics called multilateration. And what we're aiming to do is locate transmitters that are currently not seen. So we sit very much in the marketplace where we are complementary to things like AIS, which is tracking active transmitters, and we're looking to locate non-active or passive type transmitters, things that such as maritime VHF walkie-talkies, things like that. So we're looking to locate that type of activity. Usually where you find that activity, it's an indication that there's something happening there. There is actors carrying out illicit or illegal activities such as illegal fishing, piracy, smuggling, terrorism, that sort of things. But what we really want to do as part of where we see our place in the market is to act as a kind of tipping and queuing capability for those other data sets such as SAR imagery or optical imagery, etc., where we can say, we can hone in on an area. We can put a flag in the ocean to say, here's a spot that's worth looking at, because we know there's some dark maritime activity or land activity if we're looking at land. There's some dark activity which currently isn't being tracked. There's an absence of AIS there. So pull up a SAR image, pull up an optical image, or task a maritime patrol aircraft or something like that. So that speeds everything up for the analyst. So it is, to go back to your point, Scott, that there's a whole load of data there that needs to be processed. What we're trying to do is by providing more data to process, but somewhat speeding everything up for the analyst, because it speeds that whole workflow up. So that's really where we sit in the overall ISR or geo domain. We're selling these locations via an API, so we're very, very straightforward in what we are providing. We're providing points on the map. This is where we've seen active transmissions. This is when we've seen them. This is the sort of frequency that we're seeing them in. That enables that workflow for the analyst to be carried out in a more efficient way. We spent quite a lot of time making our API as ingestible as possible by a wide range of platforms. So whether you're using, the commercial sort of ArcGIS type platforms or the more sort of defense orientated type platforms, then our data is ingestible by those and it's easy to work with. So really it's another part of our business is to make sure that we are as simple to use as possible, that we are reliable, and that we are seen as an effective capability that enhances those other EO capabilities that you're already tasking, whether it's through NRO or commercial capabilities. So we're really looking to add an enhanced layer into that. So that's very much part of the business. In terms of Kleos as a company itself, I'm CEO, co-founder, started a couple of years ago. We have our first 4 satellites, our first cluster sat on a launch pad in India, currently waiting for COVID to finish so that they can launch them. It was a fairly sort of dramatic period of they were ready to go, ready to launch, and India shut down very dramatically in the middle of March. So that's caused us some challenges there. We really should have been up and operational by now and delivering capability. So we're in a frustrating period, but I think we're now sort of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. We've got the next few weeks we'll be getting there and moving forward. So very keen to sort of work with global partners around the world. We work very closely with, particularly with data integrators, data aggregators, those guys that are pulling different data sets together to really deliver a derived product, something that's actionable from an end user perspective. So we classify sort of data aggregators and integrators into both commercial, the sort of names that we all know and love from the GeoInt domain from a commercial area, but also government aggregators, people like the NGA. We're very keen to work with to make sure that we are a good part of their overall solution sort of moving forward, and we add value into that. So in terms of our growth as we continue to change as a business and move forward, we're really aiming to deliver a reactive capability. So we have plans in place for 10 clusters of 40 satellites altogether, delivering a capability really over the middle part of the equatorial part of the world, focusing on some of the key areas of interest like Strait of Hormuz, South China Sea, etc., the areas of high challenge. But we are very much customer reactive. If there's a customer need to deliver more capability over another part of the world, we will react to that and can move very quickly. That's the joy of being sort of new space and being able to move quite quickly. And also for keeping our satellites relatively simple in a lot of senses and really doing the complicated stuff on the ground with regard processing means that we can move quite quickly. So that's the overall objective of the company, where we sit in the marketplace, how we want to deliver a capability to our customers, and how we really think we can add a lot of value in terms of the overall GeoInt domain.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, no, thank you, Andy. That was excellent. I appreciate that. 4-minute review. I did a couple of questions, and you mentioned kind of regionally focused at some point. Trying to, those of us in the government that want to do a pilot or a demonstration or something, and I don't want you to have to reveal your pricing structure on this particular sense, but I mean, are you looking at, could somebody go in and say, I just want to focus on South China Sea. I don't want to eat the whole globe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And to be frank, from a small satellite perspective, we're all aware of limitations of small sats for collecting, in our case, quite a large amount of data set. People often think that just because we're collecting radio transmissions, it must be a lower size data volume than perhaps an imagery satellite. It really isn't. It's very, very similar. So to a certain extent, it helps us to optimize over particular areas of interest and really make sure we're nailing a capability for a smaller area rather than getting snippets over the entire globe. It really does help us actually to see those demonstrators over key commercial areas.
No, that's excellent. I mean, I've had a lot of discussion with the U.S. Navy and their desire for monitoring dark ships and others that are out there, mixing themselves in with the normal commercial traffic, etc. They don't claim that they need a high resolution imagery image shot to tell them that there's something bad out there. They're trying to get speed, willing to trade resolution for speed and accuracy. They need to know there's a big piece of metal out there and it's a bad guy, and they're willing to launch it because they're, by virtue of how they do business in the fleet, when that carrier battle group is out there, they're looking 1,000 miles around it. Right, so they want to know if I got to launch over the horizon, I need some level. It doesn't have to be perfect confidence. It needs to be some reasonable level of confidence. So what I'm launching against is a bad guy. So we're working with them, and I think we're all trying to figure out what is that balance between confidence and speed, right? As you get that, and you guys are doing alert, you're getting a tip to something else that would collect all that has to happen very rapidly to do the kinds of things that certainly the Navy is talking about out there. So encourage you to keep doing that. And you said in your partnerships that you mentioned and your ability to bring your data into other aggregators and stuff to merge it with AIS or whatever the data sets, I think is certainly exciting and something that I'm seeing in real life, or the demand signal is exactly that. I do have I have gotten a question on the from the chat room. So for Kleos or Andy again, question from the audience: how can we increase affordability and capability simultaneously?
How can we increase capability and affordability at the same time? Well, I think you can't have your cake and eat it, despite what everybody thinks. I think that there's always a trade-off to be had with regard to these things, and I think this is where my approach to Earth observation or geo or ISR, however you want to term it, is really to look at it more as a kind of sort of patchwork quilt with layers, where you've got the wide area surveillance, fairly low-cost commercial capabilities that are coming in and delivering a certain capability that then help better target or enhance the government exquisite type assets, which are almost unlimited budget with regard to capability, and deliver the best output clearly. But they can't be everywhere at all times, and obviously are also very expensive and take a long time to progress. So I think that I don't think we need to aim for a single one-fit-all solution. I think that by layering different capabilities, different cost levels, different different sort of technical capabilities, I think that's how you deliver the full sort of complete picture to the end user ultimately, is by this layering sort of patchwork quilt effect.
Right. Okay, I think, Andy, that's kind of the end of our time at this point for Kleos. I want to thank you very, very much for participating today. And obviously, I encourage you to stay on and listen in to the rest of the panel members. So thanks very much for your willingness to participate today. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on now. I'm looking for Gabe Dominicielo. I screwed that up, right,
yeah.
Gabe?
I don't think anyone's ever got it right, Scott.
I'm trying to plug in my headphone set while we're doing this and to help with the voice. So hopefully I don't disappear from this as we're going forward. So if everybody can hear me now, I'm just going to stick with what's working and not take another risk. So Gabe, if you don't, same kind of routine, right? If you want to give us a few minutes about what your company does, where you are in the marketplace, what differentiates you from others, et cetera. And then we'll move forward with into the questions and answers. I think some of the questions I asked Kleos would also likely apply to you too, on how we're going to make better use of this data, integrating it into various aggregators or in with other data sources, and provide the answers to the customers in such a way that they don't have to just sift through it all and try and find it themselves, because I think we all agree that's not going to meet the kind of timelines we're all trying to get to here. All right, so over to you, Gabe. Thanks very much for participating today.
Well, I think it's very apt that I get to follow Andrew, because, if you're talking about using multi-sensor fusion, right, you're using a lot of data together, putting it together and deriving a better answer. But I do want to follow up on the last question that you asked him, which is, how do you balance cost and performance? And I think Umbra is incredibly unique. And I think you all saw the video before we started. We invented a very novel way to fold a parabolic mesh antenna. So you see a lot of these small startups, particularly in synthetic aperture radar, they're trying to solve a problem either with power or fun little unique ways to do it. But we solved it with a large aperture by folding it in a really unique way. So we can have really high performance. I mean, we can take imagery at 25 centimeters, well, below 25 centimeters, in a very, very dependable way. And that's something that no multi-$100 million commercial satellite is doing today. So I think innovation is the answer. If you can innovate, we can't beat physics. We can definitely innovate. So we're always asked, like, why didn't Boeing, Raytheon, whoever, why didn't they come up with it? And the answer is there was never a need. if you're dealing with these large cost plus contracts, right, and you have $1 billion system, you're getting 10% of that, let's say, as profit. You have zero incentive to save money. But we're our own customer, right? Like, we're building the spacecraft for ourselves, and then we're selling data to the geospatial intelligence companies because we don't do analytics. And so we're highly incentivized to reduce the cost of our data as much as possible so they can actually use radar data. Radar data is incredibly expensive right now. I mean, Scott, this is something you're probably experiencing. I mean, the list price from the German satellite is like $7,000. Mm-hmm. You're charging the same price as optical for equivalent resolution, and it's on the order of 1/10 the cost. So we know we're not going to be successful unless our customers can not only use the data, use it effectively, get a lot of great answers out of it, and make a lot of money. So that's my follow-up. And then, so what does Umbra do? So we're a synthetic aperture radar company. We're based in Santa Barbara, California, which has an incredibly long history of aerospace. Jack Northrop went to Santa Barbara High, where I also went. The Lockheed brothers started Lockheed Martin down the street from our office. And so we're in a very unique place specifically for radar to build this kind of technology. What else do I have? We're launching later this year. So we're moving. And even in this COVID situation, we were like, is our launch going to get delayed? Because we saw a lot of launches get delayed. And it is, I mean, look at the situation Andrew's in. It's incredibly infuriating because these things are out of your control. But our launch is not delayed, knock on wood, or at least it hasn't been delayed yet. But I mean, it's a real fear. I don't know. Okay, and then how are we delivering data? We're delivering data through a browser interface and through an API. From tasking to delivery, so we have a very unique system, which we show in the video, which allows you to task the satellite, get a answer on when the satellite is going to be over a specific geometry. It gives you the price in advance. You select your target or AOIs, and then you know exactly when they're going to be delivered to you. And what's very unique about us is, well, one, we don't do analytics, and two, we don't bump customers. So this is something that's incredibly infuriating for commercial customers, where they go and they're like, we need 3 images of this oil field, and these are the times that we're being told that we can get this data. And then a bigger customer or a government comes in and just bumps them all. And they're like, God, we had analytics writing on this. So we know radar is a dependable sensor. So it's like, we can see through clouds, we can see at night. We want to make sure our service is incredibly dependable, so we're not bumping anyone. And all the big customers are like, what do you mean? I'll give you an extra $10 million. I want to be number one. And it's like, well, if there materializes enough demand, we'll just build and launch satellites. Our satellites are incredibly inexpensive. And so over a specific target, these kind of hotspots tend to be sold out, but we can just build and launch more satellites. It's not a big deal. It doesn't take 7 years.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's excellent. So you've hit on something that's interesting, and you can look at it from both sides, right? You've got customers that, first in, first out order, right? I got mine in, I'm going to get mine before you, right? And then you have the government, whom I work for, who, has been used to being either the sole owner or the anchor customer who gets the authority to bump everybody else out when I really need it in the name of national security, right? And I think we all realize that can't continue with every constellation, certainly with every commercial constellation provider out there. That doesn't work from a business standpoint for you guys, right? You're guaranteed people that are going to get answers to their questions and are, doing the best you can to make sure you're doing that and meeting your customers' demands. So this is something that we're working with now. We're trying to kind of pick and choose how we order from different companies and work that into what we know is in many cases, we can get bumped because there are larger customers than us in the commercial marketplace in a lot of cases, right? We can't compete with Google. We can't compete with a lot of the larger companies for what would be a business, any business that they might want to get involved in. I do have, so you mentioned that you've got launches coming up later this year. It hasn't been delayed yet, although I don't know where you're launching out of. I know in California, if you can't get people to the pad to prepare for launch in California because you're under stay-at-home order, it's going to be difficult to hold schedules. So I don't know where you're launching from, but I do want to know kind of so your launch this year is the first of how many are you anticipating over the next 5 or so years? Any idea?
Yeah, okay. So we're building a few satellites right now. We're launching the first 2 one at a time. Okay. So we don't want to be, I don't know, we don't want to put 2 on and then have them blow up, right? That would really suck. So what we're going to do is we launch 1, do on-orbit checkout, make sure that everything's working properly. If there's a problem, we fix it on Earth on the second satellite, and then send the second satellite up, and then we start launching them pretty quickly after that. But I would say we are not interested in building and launching a million satellites, right? You have these startups that say, we're going to launch, 100 satellites and we're going to see every point on Earth every second. We're a very, very rational company. So it's like, this is the first time I've ever spoken publicly about the company. We're just really, really quiet, and we move like very quietly. We want to make sure that there's enough reasonable demand before we just start plopping down huge amounts of capital, which we've raised a lot of money, and we believe that what we're building and launching will create a sustainable business. We're not selling a huge fantasy.
So I've got a question from the audience about how has Umbra Lab brought down the delay or increased the efficiency of satellite imagery delivery?
So specifically, how do we get it down?
Yeah, I guess how you're selling data as a service, right? How are you keeping that cost down and also increasing the speed at which you're doing that, right?
Sure. So there's 2 sides to that. The first side is there's not a lot of customers who need, there's not a lot of commercial customers who need the data within minutes, because it's incredibly expensive to downlink the data through a geolink, right? So what we do is we just have a lot of ground stations. So, the longest time between tasking and delivery, so the moment an image is collected, the longest time with our current service set is 90 minutes. But if there is a sufficient demand, we can bring that down to 20. And then, of course, if there's bullets flying, we just go up to geo. That's easy.
So I think one of the things I saw of your, this will be my final question, I saw in your video or on the website was your desire to kind of reduce the time between ordering and receiving of the data, right? Ordering it and receiving. And I know we're doing a lot of that in NGA because the time it takes us to order and get through the process is extensive typically. So we move to model generation to anticipate things. If this happens, then do this, right? We call that tipping and queuing on the back end. If you see this and this is happening, it immediately queues or tips another collect from another system or that system as the case may be. Those are the things we're doing to kind of connect the back end to the front end again. Can you talk a little more about what you're doing, if you haven't already covered it now, and how you're reducing that timeline between the order itself coming in and the delivery of the data? Is there some sort of, other than owning the entirety of that process and doing a first in, first out, is there any secret sauce that you're willing to reveal in there that we might be interested in knowing?
So this is something we're really, really proud of. And, we obviously have a very good relationship with NGA. And, I was talking to them recently. It's just so right now, if you want to order a satellite image, right? I'll use a commercial example. You got to put on your khakis and your Umbra Lab t-shirt and fly to Japan, eat a steak dinner, play golf, do karaoke, negotiate a contract for millions of dollars, and then priority and all that. And then you do that, and let's say that customer is at home, they type in their task that they want. They submit it on a form through a website, and then there's a human being who runs system modeling, kind of like what you're talking about. Where's the Earth? Where's the satellite? What angle is the satellite going to be? Where's the target? Blah, blah, blah. Like, we know where the Earth is. We know where the satellite is. We know where the target is. So we do all of that completely autonomously in the cloud. And so the moment a customer, and so we do that all autonomously in the cloud, the customer sees those targets the exact time that they would come through. And so from tasking to delivery, there's not one human in the loop. And that goes to the other side, right? So when an image gets down through our ground station network or through geo, you would because it's raw signals, it's not an image, right? That gets processed in the cloud and is delivered within seconds directly to a customer. And I mean, I think you might be kind of talking about our direct tactical link, which is, a user in theater would ask us, would task the satellite, we would take imagery and then turn the satellite around and then return the imagery directly to it.
Yeah, that's a whole thing we're exploring as well. So good. I don't think we have time into quite solving that problem today. That's a multi-year challenge that we're working through with the services, but I did need to wrap it up. I think we're out of time, Gabe. I wanted to thank you very, very much for allowing us to be the first of your public speaking tour to get some insight into what Umbra Labs are doing and what their unique place is in the marketplace. So again, thanks very much for your help, and please continue to listen into the rest of the participants. Thanks very much. Okay, so let's move on to Space Eyes. Look at Jatin Bains. If you're on, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of walk us through the business case and your business plan, where you are, and highlight some of the uniqueness of your capabilities. And then we'll ask a few questions.
Thanks, Scott, and good morning, everybody. I'm Jatin Bains, CEO at Space Eyes. Our company specializes in addressing challenges in the maritime domain and in obfuscated battle space. This entails geo collections and analysis with a focus on non-traditional asymmetric threats. Our offerings are unclassified commercial capabilities governed by the U.S. Department of Commerce restrictions. The uniqueness we offer in collections is a low Earth orbit radar satellite with an AIS and SAR sensor co-located on the same satellite, offering a 400-kilometer swath. To complement the SAR data collection, we offer an analysis capability that integrates over 50 maritime data sources. Our PED, process exploitation and dissemination solution, includes an expert system to understand the maritime normal and build context together with a data science system that uses artificial intelligence with statistical techniques in machine learning, such as hidden Markov models. Context in the domain is becoming ubiquitous between subsurface, surface, and space, leading to data becoming fungible. Our experience over the past 2 decades, post 9/11, has included maritime domain awareness projects with U.S. coalition partners in Australia, Israel, Chile, India, and Singapore. Most recently, we started collaborating with mission partners in the South China Sea, like the Philippines. So the value we add to the warfighter today is in delivering an unclassified tipping and queuing capability to support tactical ISR, which is intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. At Space Eyes, we recognize that an agile 80% solution now helps address timely information dominance for the warfighter in theater. To succeed, we strongly believe in teaming to fill the missing blocks, as it allows us to articulate the team's collective strength and help the warfighter address a time-sensitive challenge. Over the years, we've worked with prime contractors like Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, and others on maritime security projects. In recent years, with modern software engineering techniques, we Dockerize our containerized application that resides on the Amazon Web Services cloud. This allows us to address continuous innovation and continuous delivery with complete confidence in the DevSecOps cycle. We have a creator with the National Geospatial-Intelligence Agency and separately work with the U.S. Air Force, U.S. Navy, and U.S. Army. So our strength resides in big data analytics in the maritime domain, and that includes geospatial, non-spatial, and unstructured data. We subscribe to raw data from numerous providers and industry aggregators. This allows us to build a contextual model to apply geo-end collections against. As the battle space gets more obfuscated by non-state and state actors, it's imperative that the agility is the key discriminator for our warfighter, who will rely on information dominance. We offer an unclassified ISR layer using commercial assets. Like I said, it's an 80% solution, but it's fast to address agility and asymmetric awareness. Recently, we teamed with AT&T to leverage their data pipes and help deliver our unclassified ISR data layer to government programs and systems in the classified realm. We believe the future lies in user subscriptions and delivering insight as a service. I'm pleased to be here today in the company of my esteemed colleagues, and some of whom were with us in the space-based ISR cohort at Colorado Springs, and some that we collaborate with in delivering tactical ISR. I would conclude with saying that the future we are building for is not the same that we lived in. And we have fantastic opportunities in remote sensing through a transformation in thought. So now that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'll be happy to take any questions.
No, that's excellent. Thank you, Jatin. I think everyone would agree, certainly on the warfighter community, that an 80% solution now is preferred to trying to get to 100%, 5 years from now. I think everybody's there's appetite there to demonstrate and test these things in an operational environment or an exercise or whatever the case may be. I know on your website or in your video you mentioned RIMPAC 2020 and support to that on the maritime domain awareness side. I wonder if you could talk about exactly what you're attempting to do as part of that exercise, if you're willing to, sir.
Yes, sir. In that particular case, our customer is the U.S. Air Force, and they have a program where they're taking multiple satellites for military use. And so the idea is to collect all the imagery and then to create rapid analytics out of it. The South China Sea, where we focus on, it's obfuscated. We have had over 15 years of experience in the South China Sea working with the Singapore Navy. So we know South China Sea like the back of our hand. And that's where the adversaries are obfuscating the battle space, weaponized fishing boats, et cetera, And so the ability to be able to identify these threats and bring it to the commanders and the warfighters quickly is really critical. And so that's what we want to do is support the government entity, which is in the end PACOM. And PACOM is supported by AFRLs and some other folks. And then it's going to entail a RIMPAC. Now, RIMPAC's been shaved back a bit. It's down to 2 weeks exercise at sea. There's nothing, on land. And so we'll be supporting our program managers down in Albuquerque and Peterson Air Force Base.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, you talked about your value proposition, which one of the questions I had, and I think you mentioned insight as a service. So I wonder, is that insight as a service, is that pretty much one of the foundations of your value proposition, is giving people the services and the data they need, the answers they need, not necessarily dumping a bunch of data on them?
Well, we've got an analytics system and we've got an API. And so there's all kinds of information that customers would want to have. So For example, they might want to find out where the targets are. And because we have a wide area surveillance, so we would be able to go over, for example, South China Sea with a 400-kilometer swath with an S-band, and through inclement weather, we could find targets that would not necessarily be found otherwise, because in monsoon season, it rains cats and dogs out there. But at that time, we would be able to immediately task an Umbra Lab satellite who has X-band and say, hey, get us more details on that target, and that information then would be all automatically queued back to the customer. Or, for example, we're in conversation with Kleos, we could pick up RF intercepts, and we would do that. So it's a combination of many things which involves, like I said, it's teaming now. How do we get that information back? We're working in the unclassified realm with Kleos and Umbra and other providers. And we decided to team with AT&T because they have big data pipes to push it to the government.
Okay. I did have a question from the audience, and this will be the last question. We're going to be running out of time here shortly. You mentioned 30 data sources. Are all these imagery collectors? Or are you using open source, social media, kind of a conglomeration of a multitude of sources?
Well, we're actually over 50 data sources, and what we do is we're getting geospatial, non-spatial, and unstructured. So I'll give you a very interesting example about unstructured. A lot of bad things that happen in the maritime domain, they don't get reported into databases, but they ended up as stories in articles. So some ship was doing illegal oil transfer outside Surabaya, Indonesia. It gets into no database, but what happens is it ends up as a local story. So what we do is we call the internet, we pick up these stories, we take unstructured data, we put it together with what we're collecting from the non-spatial data sources like IHS Markit and many others. We also bring in other sources of data, like we get the Treasury sanctions from Treasury Department, all the ships under sanctions. All of this goes into an analytics engine. We create the context, we tie it in with the geospatial collections, and then we provide the results back to the warfighters.
That's super. Yeah, so you answered my question. There's certainly a lot of open source, social media kinds of things, and international media reporting and that kind of thing. So, Jatin, thank you so much for being on here with the panel today. A lot of exciting things that you guys are working on to provide these kinds of solutions or insight as a service. So thanks again. Time is up. We'll have to move on to the next participant, but thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So next is, okay. Yeah, you're welcome. Next up is Mem Computing. John Bean is on to discuss some of their unique things. This is a little bit of a change of pace from some of the things we've been talking about thus far. I will say, just to open it up, that one of my favorite courses when I was in grad school was operational research. And a lot of what your video says is, how the heck do I make all this ops research with 100 different assumptions and moving parts? How do I find the path through here that is the most efficient or the least costly or whatever the case may be? And I think you've got an interesting capability that kind of begins to enable some of those decisions to be made for whatever consumer participates. So, John, over to you. Look forward to hearing to the discussion.
Hey, Scott and Adam, thanks so much. And yeah, MemComputing is an enabling technology, as you mentioned. So we're a new compute technology that was designed specifically to handle these operational research type problems. So things today that are, combinatorial optimization problems, which is, kind of a big set of words, but it really results in, kind of boils down to scheduling and routing type problems. And these problems actually scale exponentially as the inputs grow sequentially. And it's a problem with our current compute technology. I won't go into too much of the detail there, but we've actually built a solution that overcomes that. And we're able to solve these problems without scaling exponentially. In fact, we scale linearly in many cases. And so we're actually solving problems that are currently intractable today. So they would take years and even millennia in some cases to solve. So the key aspect to our technology is that we handle scale. So the larger the problem, actually, the better we do as far as performance goes. And it's also that we will solve these problems in orders of magnitude faster. So we were at the U.S. Air Force Space Catalyst in the fall of 2019, and that led to us receiving our first SBIR. And I should mention that we work in the commercial field, and we've been there for a number of years now. We're very big in, big being a relative term considering we're a small company, in transportation, logistics, and oil and gas. So those are our main markets commercially. But we've always seen a great opportunity on the DoD side and the space side, and we're really excited to have been brought into the Space Catalyst and then got our first SBIR. And as part of the first SBIR, we then searched for Air Force customers that might have problems that we could address, and we're fortunate enough actually to find 3. So I just want to bring those out because our technology is hard to understand, but it's easier to understand when you talk about the case studies of the use cases that we'll be applying against. So there's 2 in the satellite community. One is related to actually modeling the optimal performance on processing data. So you take your satellite data and your satellite, what you have is computational performance on the satellite and the amount of data, and then of course taking into account your communication throughput, then what you could do on the cloud, and then also the communication and throughput that might be available to the warfighter at the their mobile devices. And so we're actually, our first project is going to be just calculating the optimal compute that you should do at each stage, including taking into account the communication performance between those, so that you can make sure optimize the information and results to the warfighter. We're then also looking at another problem that's related to in the satellite space. You have to optimize your movement. So if in this case, we're talking about 2 satellites merging together, and you have to optimize the performance between those 2. And it's really because of just all the physics involved, there's a lot of computation associated with that. And that is computation that will go on the satellite. And so actually another thing that's really great about our technology is that we are in software today. Ultimately, we'll build a chip. But the beauty about being in software is that in theory, it can be uploaded to satellites that are in space today and increase the performance, increase their lifespan. And then ultimately, when we build a chip, which is our next generation, that can go into next generation satellites. And then the third project we're working on is on the strategic operations command side, where they're evaluating signal processing, and they use neural networks to do that. And neural networks themselves are pretty fast, but the issue you have with neural networks is the training. So MemComputing actually can also be used to accelerate and increase the accuracy of training on neural networks. So those are some of the use cases that we're going after. And the key aspect to it is that we can handle larger data sets and solve the problems, reduce the data faster and with larger data sets.
That's that's great information. I appreciate that. I've got a number of questions that are coming in, many of whom are very disappointed to see that all their expectations and the long quantum computing has been a waste of time, because you believe that you have capability today that can outperform anything that's likely to come anytime soon from quantum computing. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, thanks for teeing that up. That's that's a key thing. So the issue has primarily been that with current technology, there is this lag, and we just haven't been able to squeeze more out of our current computers. And so our technology actually was invented at UC San Diego by 2 PhD physicists who actually went back to the drawing board, and they said, today, if I was going to design a computer, knowing what I know today, we're talking at the chip level, so at the circuit level, how would I design that circuit to eliminate some of the bottlenecks that we have in current computers? And the key bottleneck that we have today is called the von Neumann bottleneck, and it's basically that your CPU and your memory are separate. And there's a lot of communication that has to go back and forth between the two. And that's really what causes a lot of these computational problems to grow exponentially in time. The bottom line of what we've designed is computational memory. So the memory and the compute is all together. And there's other physics things that we're taking advantage of. So we're actually a new compute architecture. But what's amazing about this architecture is that while it is, I said, ultimately we'll build a chip, how we're delivering it in software today is it's the emulation of the chip. And the chip is so efficient that we're delivering this performance that we talked about. And one other thing I should mention is that our technology is actually live today. So while a lot of the performance that we talk about, it sounds like it's too good to be true, but we have a SaaS model. It's free to use for evaluation. So people don't have to take our word for it. They're able to test it out themselves. But yeah, it's these physicists their background is also quantum computing and unconventional computing methods, basically sought to solve it using current capabilities, and were able to overcome these performance criteria. And we've actually done a number of benchmarks against quantum computing problems, and we're really kind of designed to solve the same problems that quantum computing is going after. I mean, quantum computing is going after combinatorial optimization problems. So it applies in other areas as well, including, drug design, genetic sequencing, portfolio optimization in fintech, and other areas. But like I said, transportation, logistics, oil and gas, and now the DoD side are our main markets.
Now, that's outstanding information, John. I appreciate that. And unfortunately, our time is up now. I want to leave enough time at for the last presenter. But really, really advanced kind of capabilities you're talking about. I think it has a lot of applicability across the satellite developers, the ground, the comms, et cetera, as you mentioned. A lot of great work there. So look forward to hearing more from you in the future. But thanks very much for being a participant today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Next, and our final presenter is Dave Hurst from Orbital Transports. And again, a little bit different company than the ones that we talked about previously today. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dave, to kind of describe what you guys are doing on your company, and then hopefully I'll have 1 minute or so at the end to wrap things up. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Scott and Adam. Very happy to be here this morning. And thanks also to my esteemed colleagues here today. So I think Orbital Transports may be a little bit upstream from some of the other companies. We are a space logistics provider, and we are currently focused on delivering small satellite missions, typically for customers who have an interest in leveraging data from space, but maybe operating a space mission is not their primary business model. And so we deliver a turnkey end-to-end mission service. And basically, we work with our customers to understand what their mission requirements are. We do the systems engineering. We'll design the spacecraft. We'll get it built and tested. We'll find the launch opportunity. We'll operate the mission. We'll get the data back. So this is intended to be a full service. And the goal here really is to offer an outsourcing capability to our customers, so that they can focus on what they do best, which is their business model, and perhaps operating the complexities of operating a space mission is not really where they want to focus. So that is basically the core focus of our company. In order to accomplish that, we have built a network of partner companies who help us deliver on different aspects of the mission. And Orbital Transports basically acts as a general contractor, coordinating partners and connecting technologies together in order to deliver a successful mission. So because we have this network of partner companies, we realized we were in an excellent position to really support the supply chain and the ecosystem for small satellites. And so we have just this week announced the Space Catalog. And the Space Catalog is a digital portal which acts as a showcase for our partners to display their products and services. And so customers can come to the Space Catalog. They can see the latest and greatest technologies that are out there. They can then select things that they're interested in to put together a mission that allows us to engage with them and help them put that mission together. So we will be continuing to develop the space catalog over time, and we really expect the space catalog to become the go-to place for small satellite missions in the industry. And one of the movements that we see in the industry is sort of a shift from bespoke satellite manufacturing, where people are designing their spacecraft with specific requirements in mind, and then frequently cost and budget and schedule maybe get put by the wayside. But in the small satellite industry, we can't operate that way. Companies need to move rapidly. They have limited budgets. They don't have the unlimited budget of the government, perhaps. And so what they're really looking for are off-the-shelf components that they can put together that meet their requirements, and they can rapidly develop a solution and get that in space. So that is what the space catalog is about. And then the third thing I'd like to mention is that we are providing what we call our in-space, on-orbit space qualification service. So we have partners who have developed particular technology. They want to demonstrate it in space, and we have a capability to put that particular component onto a host spacecraft so it can be demonstrated on orbit. And that really reduces the cycle time for on-orbit demonstration and also reduces the cost. So it makes acquiring flight heritage for your components much more affordable and easier to do. So that's the quick summary of orbital transports. Back to you, Scott.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot for that, Dave. Really appreciate it. I think what I heard, and I listened to the video that you had with Adam earlier, what I took from that was kind of for those of us who aren't deeply involved in this business as you are, you're kind of a general contractor for companies that are interested in getting into the space market. I think you can help them get through the hardware vendors, test, launch, license, and regulatory, which I know is complicated as we work with NOAA and the FCC and others too, to help companies get their license approved. Ground stations and all that, it's a complicated integration process to get it all to work together. So my sense is you guys, you provide a service to guide people through there and support them. And if they need technologies, you also have through your space catalog or other ways in which to get them in touch with people who have that expertise. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And you're right. Space missions are hard. Not only is it rocket science, but you have to deal with the complex coordination of space vehicles, people, facilities, products, and services. And that can be a big job. And particularly if you're new to the industry, or if really you want to leverage value from space, but you're not interested in operating the mission yourself, then the kinds of services that we provide are invaluable. So we're looking to really expand access to space. We're trying to bring space closer to more people. And so that involves going outside what you might call the traditional space bubble. So we're finding a lot of people interested in developing geospatial applications, Earth observation of various types, and they want to get the data, they want to analyze the data, but building their own spacecraft is a big challenge, and so we can help them with that.
Well, thanks, Dave. I think we're kind of out of time here. I'm getting the one final question from Adam, right, to everybody is, are any of you all working together on any activities? I think one vendor, I'm not sure if it was Space Eyes, mentioned that they were working with some of the other partners. Kleos, I think, was mentioned, and others. I don't know that we have time to answer that completely, but there's a question on, is everybody just on their own, or are there partnerships being arranged by virtue of the relationships and the supporting infrastructure that many?
I know. I have another meeting right now, so I'll answer. We, as Umbra, will love to team and partner. So if anyone will team and partner with us, we'll do it. I mean, as long as there's no conflict.
Yeah, right.
As I mentioned, we have a network of partner companies, and so we are very open to partnering with companies, other people, and working with them. And I see Gabe just dropped off, but we actually have opened an interesting conversation with Umbra Labs just recently. So we are absolutely open to working with partners and collaborating.
Likewise, it's as I presented in my introduction, it's very much part of our business philosophy to work with a wide range of partners. We think it's the best way, it's the most cost-effective way for the for government and taxpayer customers to deliver a capability is to work on best athlete basis.
And from computing's perspective, we're enabling technology. We'd love to work with everybody. Jatin's actually reached out to us. We need to set up a call there. I think there's a lot of opportunity with all these other panelists as well, that there might be some opportunity for MemComputing to support what they're doing.
Sure.
Yeah, we were in the Space ISR cohort with MemComputing, and so we're looking to work with them, and we're also in discussions with Kleos and Umbra Lab. So you're right. I mean, in the new space, you have to collaborate, and in the end, the customer is the warfighter, and as long as we can, deliver on the promise to the warfighter, so that the challenges get addressed, I think that's the wish that we want to have.
Well, again, gentlemen, we are out of time, and I want to thank all of you for your participation today. I very much enjoyed being the moderator, and you guys did an outstanding job of representing your companies and the technology that you're bringing forth for the government and for private sector. Best of luck to all of you. I hope to see you sometime soon. And again, thanks to Adam for setting this whole panel up. I thought it was outstanding, quite honestly, and a great variety of technologies that we were able to cover today. So thanks, everyone, for your participation, and best of luck getting through this crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
you.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, mate.